We really need to talk about what's happening in the Red Sea. It might feel like a conflict that's a world away, but it is creating a serious chokehold on the global economy. And whether you realize it yet or not, it's definitely starting to affect you directly.
So how is this even possible, right? How can the Houthi rebels, a group based in one of the world's poorest countries, manage to hold the entire global trade system hostage? Well, to get that, we have to look at one specific moment where absolutely everything changed.
Things really kicked into high gear on March 28, 2024. That's when a missile was launched from Yemen aimed at southern Israel. Now, the missile was intercepted, sure, but the attack itself, that was a total game changer. It wasn't just about one missile. It was a loud and clear signal that a new, very credible threat had emerged in one of the most critical spots on the entire planet.
Okay, so let's dive into the geography of this, because it all starts with a very narrow stretch of water that has a particularly, well, an ominous name.
This right here is the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. At its narrowest point, it's just 30 kilometers wide, and it serves as the southern exit of the Red Sea. Its name in Arabic translates to the Gate of Tears, which has become grimly appropriate because this tiny little choke point is the key to this entire crisis.
So why is it so important? Get this. A staggering 12% of all global maritime trade funnels through this one narrow strait every single year.
And to put that into perspective for you, we're talking about nearly 19,000 vessels a year. That's everything from those massive container ships carrying your electronics and clothes to tankers packed with grain and fuel.
And here's the kicker. It's a vital artery for energy. Before all this escalated, over 9 million barrels of oil flowed through this strait every single day. That is more crude oil than all of Europe consumes combined.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how this shows one crisis just piling on top of another. Look, the Strait of Hormuz, which itself handles about 20% of the world's oil, has had its own geopolitical problems for years. That pretty much left the Bab el-Mandeb as the global economy's last vital workaround. So when both are threatened, we are staring down the barrel of what analysts are calling global energy strangulation.
So what do you do if you can't go through the Red Sea? Well, there's really only one alternative. You have to sail all the way around Africa. But as you can imagine, that adds up to 2 weeks to the journey and costs an extra $1 million in fuel for just one round trip. And those costs, they don't just vanish. They get passed straight on to us, the consumers.
Okay, so this all leads to a really logical question, right? With all the military power in the world, why can't the most powerful navies just go in and secure the shipping lane? Well, the answer comes down to some truly unwinnable math.
Just take a look at this comparison. It's wild. On one side, you have a Houthi drone that cost, let's say, $20,000 to make. On the other side, the U.S. Navy interceptor missile they used to shoot it down cost anywhere from $2 to over $4 million. That is a staggering imbalance.
And this chart, wow, it just lays the problem out perfectly. You can see right here it costs the defender at least 150 times more to stop an attack than it costs the attacker to launch one. You simply cannot win a long-term fight with those kinds of economics. It's just not sustainable.
This imbalance creates what military analysts call the destroyer's dilemma, and it's a huge logistical vulnerability. Think about it. A state-of-the-art warship fires off its very limited, very expensive interceptors to defend commercial ships. But once its missile magazine is empty, and it can empty surprisingly fast, that ship is basically a sitting duck. It has to sail all the way back to port to reload, taking $1 billion asset completely out of the fight for weeks at a time.
So the crucial takeaway here is that this is a perfect example of a force multiplier. The attackers don't actually need to sink a bunch of ships. They just need to keep launching cheap drones, forcing the world's most advanced navies to spend a fortune and drain their limited stockpiles. They're winning by making the active defense just too expensive to keep up.
Okay, so let's connect the dots. Let's see how this military math problem happening in a sea thousands of miles away is having a very real impact on the price of, well, pretty much everything.
As one expert from the Chatham House think tank put it, and I think this is pretty blunt, it's a nightmare. We already have a nightmare, and this would make it worse of a nightmare. And he's talking about the domino effect this has across the entire global economy.
And we are absolutely seeing those effects right now. The extra shipping costs are baking inflation directly into the supply chain. And what that means for you is higher prices for food, electronics, clothes, you name it. All the goods we rely on that have to travel by sea.
And economists are already measuring this. They estimate that these Red Sea disruptions by themselves are adding up to 0.5 percentage point to core goods inflation around the world. Now, that might sound small, but think of it like a hidden tax on everything you buy, caused directly by this conflict.
The really grim reality here is that there's no easy way out. There's no obvious military fix. The cost exchange is so ridiculously skewed in favor of the attackers that this is turning into what people are calling a forever war. This isn't a traditional war with front lines and big battles. It's a permanent, low-grade stranglehold on one of the world's most critical economic arteries, and there is no clear end in sight.
And that leaves all of us with a really deep, unsettling question for the future. I mean, we have built this entire globalized economy that depends completely on the free and safe flow of goods. But what happens when we finally realize that one of its most important highways can no longer be defended at a cost we're willing to pay? What does that really mean for the world that we've all built?